My name is Naomi Pierce and I'm 48 years old. I live in Atlanta, Georgia in a small apartment downtown. My life is quiet, too quiet sometimes. Most days feel like they blur together. Wake up, go to work, come home, eat, sleep, repeat. I work long hours as an administrative coordinator for a law firm, always running errands for other people. By the end of each week, I'm drained, not just in my body, but in my spirit. Lately, the loneliness has been the heaviest thing I carry. When I look in the mirror, I sometimes barely recognize myself. The woman who used to laugh loud and dance to her favorite songs feels gone. People at work don't really see me. I'm just another face behind a desk, another voice answering calls. My life feels small, invisible, like I'm fading a little more every day. That Friday night, I left the office later than usual. The November air was cool and smelled faintly of rain. The streetlights reflected off the wet pavement like little gold stars. Normally, I'd take the same route home, a short walk, then the bus, then my empty apartment. But something inside me hesitated. My feet stopped in front of a building I'd passed 100 times. The Velvet Room, a lounge with red neon lights glowing through the windows. I don't know what made me pause that night. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was loneliness. Or maybe I was just tired of disappearing. I whispered to myself, Naomi, you need to do something different. So I pushed open the heavy door and stepped inside. Warm air and the soft hum of R&B wrapped around me. The room smelled like bourbon and perfume. Laughter floated from the tables. Couples leaned close, whispering secrets over dim candlelight. The low red lights made everyone look beautiful, glowing skin, slow smiles, easy movements. I found a small table tucked into the corner and ordered a drink, something smooth and sweet. As I sat there, the music filled the spaces that loneliness used to occupy. For the first time in a long time, I felt like part of the world again. I wasn't just Naomi the office worker, or Naomi the tired woman who lived alone. I was just a woman, breathing, watching, existing in the warmth of the room. I didn't know it yet, but that one simple choice, stopping for a drink instead of going home, was about to change everything. I was halfway through my second drink when I noticed him, a young man standing by the bar, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. He smiled, that kind of easy, confident smile that could melt through walls. After a moment, he started walking in my direction. My pulse quickened before I even realized it. He stopped beside my table, close enough for me to catch the faint scent of his cologne, clean, warm, with a trace of cedar. Mind if I sit here? He asked, voice smooth, casual but sure of itself. I hesitated for a beat, then nodded. Go ahead. He pulled out the chair and sat down, leaning forward with his elbows resting on the table. I'm Zion Holt, he said, flashing that same charming smile. You look like you could use some company. His words caught me off guard. Oh, I said, laughing softly. And what makes you think that? He shrugged, eyes bright. Because you've been sitting here with that look people get when they're trying to remember what fun feels like. I laughed again, really laughed this time. It had been so long since someone had seen me like that. Or cared enough to tease me. Zion told me he was 22. A student finishing up a business degree at Georgia State. The number hit me like a surprise. 22, less than half my age. I felt the difference, but somehow in that dim red light it didn't seem to matter. He was easy to talk to. His confidence wasn't arrogance. It was playful, curious. He asked about my work, about music, about my favorite places in the city. He listened carefully to every answer, like each word was worth something. When he told me, "You look beautiful tonight," I didn't know what to do with the warmth that rushed to my face. I hadn't heard words like that in years. I tried to deflect it with a nervous laugh, but he just kept smiling. Eyes never leaving mine. We talked for what felt like hours. About nothing and everything. He told stories that made me laugh until my shoulders relaxed, until I forgot about time, my age, or the weight of my week. The world outside that bar stopped existing. When his fingers brushed mine, just lightly, as he reached for his glass, something inside me shifted. It was the smallest touch, barely a spark, but it felt like being reminded that I was still alive. Still capable of feeling. As the night deepened. The music thumped softly through the floorboards, wrapping around us like a pulse. I watched Zion smile, the curve of it full of mischief and promise. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. And deep down, I knew this night was only beginning. Zion leaned closer, his voice barely carrying over the music. "Come dance with me," he said, his tone both playful and daring. I froze for half a second. It had been years since anyone asked me that, and even longer since I'd said yes. But before my nerves could catch up, I nodded. "Okay." He grinned and took my hand. His palm was warm against mine as he led me onto the floor. The crowd was thick, bodies moving in rhythm under dim red and blue lights. The beat of an old-school R&B track pulsed through the air, the bass matching the quickening of my heartbeat. Zion pulled me close. Not too close, just enough to feel the heat between us. His hand rested on my waist, firm but gentle. The music vibrated through our skin, through the space between us. I tried to focus on the rhythm, on my steps, but my body was more aware of his than the music itself. For a moment, I glanced up at him. His eyes met mine, dark, steady, full of something unspoken. He smiled, slow and knowing, and my stomach flipped. I could feel my pulse in my throat. As the song changed, the tempo softened and the lights dimmed even lower. The room seemed to melt away until it felt like there were only two people dancing, him and me. The air between us thickened with tension that neither of us tried to hide. Zion leaned down, his breath brushing my ear as he whispered something I couldn't make out. Maybe it didn't matter what he said. The sound of his voice against the music made my skin prickle. When I looked up again, our faces were only inches apart. I could see the faint sheen of sweat on his temple, the sharp line of his jaw. Then, slowly, deliberately, he kissed me. The world disappeared. The noise, the people, the lights, gone. It was just that kiss, unexpected and deep, pulling me into a place I hadn't been in years. My heart raced like it wanted to escape my chest. I forgot about everything. My job, my exhaustion, the years I'd spent feeling invisible. In that moment, I wasn't 48. I wasn't lonely. I was alive. When the kiss ended, we stayed close, breathing the same air. I could see the question in his eyes, the silent "what now?" lingering between us. I didn't hesitate this time. I leaned toward him and whispered, "Let's get out of here." Zion's grin returned, wider, sharper, almost dangerous. He didn't ask where or why. He just nodded once, took my hand again, and led me through the crowd toward the door. The cool Atlanta night hit my skin like a spark. The city hummed around us. Cars, laughter, distant music. My pulse still danced to the rhythm of that kiss. I knew this might be reckless, maybe even foolish. But in that moment, I didn't care. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about consequences. I was thinking about how alive I finally felt. The walk back to my apartment was quiet. The kind of quiet that hums with expectation. The city felt alive around us. Cars gliding down Peachtree Street. Laughter spilling from patios. The rhythm of Atlanta pulsing beneath our feet. Zion held my hand the whole way, his thumb tracing slow circles across my skin. Every touch felt deliberate, like he was writing something invisible there. When we reached my building, I hesitated at the door. I could feel the weight of what I was about to do. The risk, the judgment, the age gap that would make people stare. But when I looked up at him, at that easy smile and those deep brown eyes, the fear melted away. I unlocked the door. Inside, the apartment felt smaller, softer. The city noise faded as the door clicked shut behind us. We stood there for a moment, facing each other in the stillness. Then Zion reached out and brushed a curl away from my cheek. The simple gesture made my breath catch. He kissed me again, slower this time. The taste of bourbon lingered between us, warm and heady. My hands found his shoulders, firm and steady, and suddenly the years between us didn't matter. The world outside my walls, the office, the loneliness, the routines vanished. There was only this moment. We laughed between kisses, moving clumsily through the small living room, bumping into furniture and not caring. His laughter was young and bright, and for the first time in forever, mine matched it. It felt like stepping into sunlight after years of rain. Later, when we finally sank onto the couch, we talked not about anything big, just stories. Little things. He told me about his classes, his dreams of opening his own business one day. I told him about my favorite songs, about how I used to dance barefoot in my kitchen on Saturday mornings. We talked until our words blurred into soft murmurs, until the space between us closed completely. When we finally made our way to the bedroom, it wasn't rushed or wild. It was slow, tender, almost hesitant, like two people remembering how to be seen. Every touch felt like rediscovering something I thought I'd lost long ago. Later, we fell asleep tangled together. His hand rested lightly on my arm, and for the first time in years, I felt safe. The city hummed softly outside, but inside my little apartment, the world was still. I didn't think about the morning or what might come next. I didn't think about rules or regrets. For those few quiet hours, I let myself be free, completely, beautifully free. The morning light spilled into my bedroom, soft and gold, warming the sheets where Zion still slept beside me. His breathing was slow, peaceful, a quiet rhythm that made the room feel safe. I lay there for a while, studying the curve of his jaw, the way his hair fell across his forehead. For a fleeting moment, everything felt right. Almost innocent. Then came the sound that shattered it all. The sharp click of a key turning in the lock. My body froze. That sound was too familiar. My heart lurched into my throat. No. It couldn't be. The door opened and I heard her voice. Mama? Jada, my daughter. She wasn't supposed to be home until Sunday night. Panic shot through me so fast it made my hands shake. Zion was still asleep, completely unaware of the disaster about to unfold. I scrambled out of bed, heart pounding. Zion, I hissed, shaking his shoulder. His eyes blinked open, confused. You have to get up now. My daughter's home. He shot upright instantly. I grabbed his arm and pointed to the closet. In there. Don't make a sound. He didn't argue. I barely got the door closed before Jada called out again, her footsteps moving closer down the hallway. I ran a hand over my hair, tried to fix my robe, tried to breathe. Hey, baby, I said, forcing calm into my voice as I stepped into the living room. Jada stood by the door, a big weekend bag slung over her shoulder, her smile easy and unsuspecting. Hey, Mama, the trip ended early. I thought I'd surprise you. Surprise, I said weakly, my voice too high. My palms were sweating. I needed to keep her out of my room. You hungry? I can make some tea, maybe pancakes. She shook her head. No, I just need to grab that book I left in your room last week. My stomach dropped. I stepped forward fast, blocking the hallway. Wait, let me get it for you. You sit, I'll find it. Jada frowned. It's fine, Mom. I know exactly where it is. She started moving again. I could feel sweat sliding down my neck. Think, Naomi. Think. Actually, I said quickly. The kitchen faucet's acting up again. Can you check if it's still leaking? That made her pause, puzzled but cooperative. You? Sure. She turned toward the kitchen. I exhaled sharply, ran back to the closet, and cracked the door open. Zion's eyes met mine, wide, alert. Go, I whispered. Now, quietly, through the front door. He nodded and slipped out barefoot, moving like a shadow. Relief flooded me. Until he stopped at the doorway, he turned back, that same sly grin flickering across his face. He leaned close and whispered, Your daughter's cute, too. The words sliced through me like glass. My face burned with anger, disgust, shame. I grabbed the door and pushed it open wider. Get out, I snapped through my teeth. And don't you ever come back here again. He gave a low chuckle and disappeared down the hall. I locked the door twice, my chest heaving. For a long moment I stood there, my back pressed against the wood, my pulse roaring in my ears. The warmth from the night before had evaporated completely. What replaced it was cold and sharp regret. I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and walked to the kitchen. Jada looked up from the sink. Everything okay, Mom? I forced a smile. Yeah, baby. Everything's fine. But inside, I knew it wasn't. The night that had made me feel alive now felt like the biggest mistake of my life. The next day, the morning felt heavy. Even sunlight couldn't reach the corners of my mind. Every time I tried to focus on breakfast or chores, flashes of Zion's smirk and those awful words came back. Your daughter's cute, too. Shame crawled up my spine. I wished I could erase the entire night, rewind, and choose differently. By afternoon, there was a knock at the door. My stomach twisted. When I opened it, there he was, Zion, standing there like he had every right to be. He wore the same easy smile, but something behind it had changed. His eyes were colder now, calculated. "Hey, Naomi," he said, leaning against the frame. "Mind if I come in?" My voice caught in my throat. "What do you want?" He shrugged, his tone casual. "Just wanted to see you again. And, I'm kinda short on cash. Thought maybe you could help me out." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. "You can't just," he interrupted, smile never fading. "Come on, it's nothing big. You've got a nice place, good job. I'm not asking for much." Guilt flooded me. I wanted him gone, but fear whispered that if I refused, he might say something. Tell Jada. Tell anyone. I didn't want that kind of shame in my daughter's eyes. So I reached for my purse, pulled out some cash, and handed it to him. "Take this," I said, voice trembling. "And don't come back here." He took the money with a smirk that made my skin crawl. "Sure thing," he said, tucking it into his pocket before strolling away. But he did come back. The next week. Then the week after that. Each time the smile was colder. The tone sharper. The requests turned into demands. Every visit chipped away at what little peace I had left. One Tuesday evening, I refused to open the door. He stood on the other side, knocking louder, his voice low and hard. "Naomi, stop playing." "Open up." I stayed silent, gripping the edge of the counter, praying he'd leave. Then his tone changed. He leaned close enough that I could hear his whisper through the door. "If you don't give me what I want, I'll tell your daughter everything." My breath stopped. I felt my knees weaken. He knew exactly where to strike. The fear of losing Jada's trust. That was my weakness. My entire world spun around that one threat. That night I sat in the dark, too afraid to move, listening to every creak in the building like it might be him. I couldn't sleep. Every vibration of my phone made my heart jump. His name started appearing in my texts, in missed calls. Like a shadow that wouldn't leave. It had only been 2 weeks since the night at the bar, but it felt like a lifetime. My mistake had grown into something monstrous, a secret that was devouring me whole. And for the first time, I realized what this really was. Not guilt, not regret. It was blackmail. The fear had become a living thing in my house. It waited with me, slept beside me, whispered in every quiet moment. Every time my phone lit up with Zion's name, my stomach dropped. His messages were short, sharp, and cruel. "I need more. Don't ignore me. You don't want your daughter to find out, do you?" I kept giving him money. Small amounts at first, then more. It didn't stop him. It only fed him. Each lie I told Jada built another wall between us. She started asking questions. Why I seemed distracted. Why I flinched when the doorbell rang. Why I suddenly needed cash. I'd smile and say I was fine, but my voice never matched the words. One night, I couldn't keep the mask on anymore. I found her in the living room, curled up on the couch watching TV, her face lit by the soft blue glow. My heart pounded as I sat beside her. I could barely look at her. "Baby," I said, my voice shaking. "There's something I need to tell you." She muted the TV and turned toward me. "What's wrong, Mama?" The words tangled in my throat. For weeks I had been drowning in silence. Now it was time to breathe, even if it hurt. I took her hand, my palms cold. "A few weeks ago, I went out. To a lounge. I met someone, a young man named Zion." Jada's brows lifted, confusion flickering in her eyes. But she didn't interrupt. I told her everything, how I was lonely. How he made me feel seen again. How one night turned into a mistake I couldn't undo. My voice broke as I confessed about the morning she came home early, about hiding him, about the shame that followed. Then I told her what was happening now, the visits, the threats, the money. By the time I finished, my whole body was trembling. Tears blurred my vision. "I was so scared to tell you," I whispered. "I didn't want you to hate me." For a long moment, Jada didn't move. Then she reached out, cupped my face, and wiped away a tear with her thumb. "Mama," she said softly, "you made a mistake. But that man, what he's doing to you isn't your fault. He's the one who should be ashamed." Her voice grew stronger. "We're not letting him control you anymore." I broke down then, sobbing against her shoulder. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't carrying the secret alone. The weight began to lift, piece by piece, replaced by something I hadn't felt in a long time. Courage. Jada held me tight, her voice steady against my ear. "You're safe now, Mama. We're going to end this together." And in that moment, I knew she meant it. The fear that had kept me prisoner started to crack, and through those cracks, the light finally began to return. The next morning felt different, quieter, but charged. Like the air before a storm. I didn't sleep much. Every creak of the apartment made me flinch, expecting a knock, a message, a shadow at the door. But I wasn't alone this time. Jada stayed with me, moving around the kitchen, calm and steady. She looked so much like her father in moments like this, strong, unshaken, and it gave me strength I didn't know I still had. By noon, the knock finally came, 3 short, sharp raps against the wood. My pulse spiked. Jada's eyes met mine. No words, just a silent agreement. I nodded. She nodded back. Then the door opened before I could reach it. Zion stepped inside like he owned the place. Same hoodie, same sly grin, same arrogance. "Afternoon, Naomi," he said, his tone syrup smooth. "You didn't answer my calls." He stopped when he saw Jada. His smirk faltered. Jada rose from the couch slowly, her shoulders squared, her eyes like steel. "You must be Zion," she said, her voice low but firm. Zion tried to recover, laughing under his breath. "Oh, so you told her? Damn, I didn't think you'd have it in you." Jada took a step closer. "You need to leave. Right now." He blinked, surprised by the authority in her tone. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," she said, louder this time. "You've done enough damage. You don't get to come here again. You don't get to threaten my mother. You don't get anything." Her voice cut through the room like thunder. I stayed behind her, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my hands, but I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. She was saying everything I'd been too afraid to say. Zion's smirk twisted. Defensive now. "Man, y'all trippin'." I was just, "Stop," Jada snapped, stepping forward until she was inches from him. "You've been blackmailing her, harassing her, trying to scare her. It ends today. You're done." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Zion's jaw clenched. He looked between the two of us, me trembling but standing tall behind my daughter, and he knew. The control he'd held for weeks was gone. He lowered his eyes, muttering something under his breath, then backed away toward the door. "Don't come back here," Jada said, her voice cold and certain. "Not ever." He didn't look up. The door slammed shut behind him with a sound that echoed through the apartment. Sharp, final, cleansing. For a few seconds I couldn't breathe. Then slowly, air rushed into my lungs again, filling me all the way to the bottom. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was peace. Jada turned toward me. Her eyes softened. "He's gone, Mama." I nodded, tears spilling over. "He's gone." She crossed the room and wrapped me in her arms. For the first time in months I felt safe, really safe. The fear, the shame, the secrecy, all of it had been pushed out with him. When we finally sat down together, the quiet felt new, gentle, clean. I reached for her hand, grateful, humbled, free. That day, I learned that sometimes strength doesn't sound like shouting or fighting. Sometimes it sounds like your daughter standing between you and your past, saying, "No more." After the door slammed and Zion's footsteps faded down the hall, the apartment went still, not the tense. Suffocating stillness I'd grown used to, but something softer. The air felt lighter, like the walls themselves had been holding their breath and were finally allowed to exhale. I stood there for a long time, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the distant sounds of traffic below. The kind of ordinary noises that had once faded into the background now felt like proof that life was still happening, that I was still here. Jada was the first to move. She walked over and took my hand, squeezing it tight. I could see in her eyes that she was still angry, not at me, but at everything I had endured alone. That anger, fierce and protective, made me love her even more. We sat down together on the couch. The same spot where I'd once told her my secret. The same spot where I'd broken down, expecting her to turn away. But now there was no distance between us, only a quiet understanding. Neither of us said much. Words didn't feel necessary. The silence between us was comfortable this time, almost healing. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe without fear pressing against my chest. I thought about all the nights I had spent waiting for Zion's messages, about the dread that lived in my bones, about how small and powerless I'd felt. And now it was over. Shame still lingered, yes. The choices I made, the lies I told, they were still mine to carry. But beneath that shame was something stronger, pride. Pride that I had faced the truth, even when it hurt. Pride that I had let love, not fear, guide me back to myself. Jada rested her head on my shoulder. "We're okay now, Mama," she whispered. I closed my eyes, letting the words settle deep. "We're okay." For the first time in weeks, I believed it. That night, as I lay in bed, the city lights painted soft gold patterns on my ceiling. I thought about everything I had learned, how a single night of loneliness could spiral into something dangerous, how silence can turn into chains, and how truth, once spoken, can break them. Tomorrow, life would return to normal, work, errands, calls. But it would be a new normal, one built on honesty, not hiding. One where I could look in the mirror and see myself clearly again. I wasn't invisible anymore. In the days that followed, the fear that once ruled my life slowly loosened its grip. The silence in my apartment no longer felt like punishment, it felt like peace. I could finally move through my own space without jumping at every sound, without checking the door twice, without flinching at the sight of my phone lighting up. Jada and I fell back into our rhythm. But something between us had changed, deepened. We talked more, laughed more. She started coming by after work just to sit with me, sometimes bringing takeout or a new playlist she wanted me to hear. Each moment felt like another piece of my life returning, piece by piece, to its rightful place. But even as things settled, the memory of those weeks stayed with me. I didn't want to forget them. Not out of guilt, but out of gratitude. Because I understood something now that I hadn't before. Secrets, I realized, are like heavy stones. You think you can carry them alone, but they pull you down deeper and deeper until you forget what the surface feels like. The longer you hide them, the more they feed on your fear. The truth, though, the truth is a key. It's sharp, and it can hurt to hold, but it opens the lock. It frees you. I learned that strength isn't about pretending you're fine. It's about being brave enough to say, "I'm not." It's about admitting your mistakes, facing them, and forgiving yourself enough to keep going. That night when Jada and I sat on the couch, the city lights glowing through the blinds, she looked over at me and smiled. "You know, Mama," she said softly, "you don't have to be perfect to be strong." Her words sank deep into my heart. I smiled back, feeling tears I didn't bother to hide. "I know, baby," I whispered. "I know that now." I looked out the window at the soft, endless stretch of the city, the same city that had watched me lose myself and find myself again. Somewhere out there, people were making mistakes. Trying to feel alive, trying to love, just like I had and for the first time in a long time. I didn't feel ashamed of being one of them. The truth had set me free, and with my daughter's love beside me, I was finally ready to live, to breathe, and to begin again.